and welcome back to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. I am your host, Anna, and today I bring to you one of my most anticipated episodes of the whole year. It is my conversation with the one and only Miss Rachel Harrison. She is the author of such books like Such Sharp Teeth, So Thirsty, and the very highly anticipated Play Nice, which hits shelves on September 9th this year from Berkeley. I had the good fortune of being able to read this book way earlier this year. And so in the weird world of podcasting time, this conversation took place, I believe, back in like March or April. So you're going to hear us talk about some things that might be a little dated or might sound a little out of time. But I can assure you the actual contents of the conversation are very good and very timely. Just a few of our references are old, like when we first started watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and Mom Talk and all that good stuff. So enough about that. Play Nice is an incredible book, and I cannot wait for you all to hear what Rachel has to say about her inspiration for the novel, what went into it, and so much more. So without further ado, here we go. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just got through watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which you recommended to me, and I'm feeling fabulous.
You're welcome, and I'm sorry that I brought you into the world of mom talk.
No, I'm very thankful. I needed the brain break very much, so very appreciative. But we are not here to talk about mom talk today. We are here to
Not
talk.
today.
That's a different podcast that coming soon. But we are here to talk about Play Nice, which is your upcoming novel. It's coming out with Berkeley. If people don't know who you are, you're a horror author, and you've written such books like my favorite, Such Sharp Teeth, The Return, Cackle, So Thirsty, and Black Sheep. I think that you actually like top out as my highest return guest on my podcast, making it
Ooh.
this time number 3, which is very exciting. But yeah, I'm super excited that I get to chat with you about this. And do you want to, if people haven't heard about Play Nice yet, do you want to kind of introduce the book? Because I don't want to spoil it.
So Play Nice is about Cleo Barnes, who is an influencer in her early 20s living in New York City. She kind of leads this charmed, carefree life. She's the youngest of 3 sisters. And she's out one night and she gets a call from her sisters and finds out that their estranged mother has passed away unexpectedly. And that kind of leads her to ask some questions about her childhood. Her parents divorced when she was very young, and she lived with her dad. Her mother lost custody, and her mother claimed that the house that she bought after the divorce was possessed by a demon. And she went on to like write an Amityville style book about her time in the house. And Cleo and her sisters sort of promised their father they would never read it and have nothing to do with it and moved on with their lives. But now that their mother is gone, Cleo starts to get curious, and it turns out that the house stayed in her mother's possession, and Cleo's now inherited it. So her sisters are like, put it on the market. We want nothing to do with it. And Cleo's like, but what if I flip it for aesthetics? And like has watched way too many Instagram reels and thinks that home renovation is easy, which I definitely have never done, and goes into it and kind of gets more than she bargained for. And yeah, this is my first time pitching it, so it's a little messy, but so is Cleo.
No, I think that hits on everything just about perfectly. So of course, I want to open with the general question of like inspiration for the story, like how did this start for you? What was the nugget for the idea, all that good stuff. Which is a really broad question, so
Yeah.
feel free to just let it rip.
Some novels, I have like a very distinct memory, like a really clean, easy story about like, I had this aha moment. And for this novel's origin, it's like kind of muddled. I've always found Amityville like fascinating because there's so many layers to that story. The real life tragedy of the DeFeos, and then like the Lutz family came in, which is a different kind of tragedy, a more like domestic kind of everyday tragedy versus what happened to the DeFeos. And then getting into like the involvement of the Warrens and like a lot of people don't know, but the Warrens are like pieces of shit, like
Yeah.
awful people, awful, awful people. And like, I don't want to ruin the Conjuring movies because like they're so like, you know, charming and lovely in those movies and the heroes. But no, in real life, they were absolute pieces of shit. Not to speak ill of the dead, but whatever. So it's just like the story of Amityville and like then like you have the book and then all of the film adaptations. So it gets difficult to separate the fact from the fiction and also like all these people piling on to a tragedy. And I've always like wondered what it would be like for the Lutz children because they grew up in a house, like spent time in that house that obviously had real legitimate tension. And also then to have to like go along with this lie that the house was haunted and to grow up and read about their childhood that was presented as fact, but it's fiction. And how do you parse out what really happened and what never happened when like you're that young and like, you know, I think I have very vivid memories from when I'm a kid, but also, you know, my brother could tell me something happened and maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but like because of the setting and because like he knew me then, like maybe I would believe it. And just this like mercurial that memories can be. And I always thought about that in the context of Amityville. And it was just like, that always intrigued me. And so I was having like all of these thoughts about Amityville and like kind of toying with it for, I knew I had to come up with an idea for my next novel. And at that time, this is a big left turn, but Sophie Turner and Joe Jonas announced they were getting divorced. And Joe Jonas came out and like his PR team or whatever tried to be like, Sophie Turner went out to dinner. Like she's a terrible mother.
Yeah, just slandered the shit out of her.
Collectively as a society, we were all like, no. Everyone just shut it down immediately. And it really struck me because there's not a lot of progress has been made since I was young. And this felt like tangible progress because I grew up in the aughts in the era of like Perez Hilton. And like I watched the media destroy Britney Spears.
Yep.
And like, and the paparazzi and the media back then and all of the like, this was like early internet blogs would just say the worst things about these women, just completely break them down, judge their appearance, like Jessica Simpson, like,
oh, I remember that. Yeah.
how they destroyed her for like stepping out on stage in like a bad outfit. They were just like you could look back on it now and it's just so horrifying. You can't believe that that happened. And it still happens, but in different ways. But and particularly with Britney, they just brought her down and she didn't have good people around her in her life. And especially Kevin Federline, who's like up there with the Warrens in terms of pieces of shit. But they torture these women and then the women break down and it's like, they're crazy. Like, can you believe? And there's so little empathy. There's like this like kind of like wicked celebration when like a woman finally cracks because then they get to be like, she's crazy and dismiss her and just, you know, take away all of her accomplishments and everything that like about her that's special. They get to completely change the narrative of a woman's life. They just get to vilify her. And I think that's something that everybody can relate to. I think we've all been in relationships or situations where like we've maybe been gaslit or been treated a certain way. And then when we react, it's like, whoa, 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 calm down, relax. Or like, you know, going through breakups where someone will mistreat you and then like you react accordingly and they're like, oh, my ex is so crazy. It's like, what? And no one ever asks. No one ever asks like what happened around. Like nobody wants to put crazy in context.
Yeah,
They
there's no
just want to,
context.
yeah, use it and be like, oh, well, you know, she's crazy or she's this or she's that. So I was thinking about the Sophie Turner, Joe Jonas thing just got me like, it was kind of like a hopeful moment, but it also kind of like clicked into place for me how it affected me to grow up in that era and to like
Hmm.
witness all of that. And, you know, a few years prior was when, you know, the Hulu documentary came out about Britney and how like Justin Timberlake during that behaved during that breakup and how she just kind of never said anything and just took it and like sad and frustrating that is. And to like, it kind of just married perfectly with this idea of Amityville and like perception and memory. And if you tell anybody like there's a demon in my house, they're going to be like, you are crazy. And
Yeah.
um, like probably, but like, let's ask some questions. Um, so that's, you know, it's kind of it was like a bunch of different things that sort of like swirled together in like a not like clean, neat way. It was sort of just like, you know, when you like dump out the Legos and then start to build.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I remember, I feel like my childhood in particular, like I grew up catching the tail end of like tabloids and like posting like, this is what Jessica Simpson looked like 6 months ago and this is
Yeah.
what she looks like now. How terrible is she? And the Britney stuff. Because like I remember that People magazine issue or whatever it was, because like my aunt had it or something. So I caught that, growing up. And then now like I also caught the beginning of social media, which
Yeah.
is a different, response to the same thing, which is a whole other conversation. But yeah, no, it's super mind-boggling how we just kind of like all collectively like took that in. And like nobody really said anything about it. And like you said with the Joe Jonas thing, like hopefully it's being rectified and like the attitude is changing. But yeah, no, it's wild. Like the things that happened in the early 2000s I feel like in particular with that, regarding people's appearances, their outfits, what they're up to and stuff like that. And then the other thing that you mentioned too about like the fallibility of memory. I think it's super interesting what you explore with Play Nice because there are sibling dynamics, right? And I'm an only child. So for me, I am always questioning my childhood. Like, did I remember that correctly? Am I, whatever? And like, I don't really have anybody to back me up or tell me if I'm right or wrong. Like every now and then there's a cousin who's like, yeah, I remember that. But on the whole, I think it's really smart the way that you structured this story with the sibling dynamics, everybody, with Cleo being the youngest and kind of playing up to the sibling archetypes, but also being different in some ways. Um, I really, really enjoyed that confrontation of, hey, this is what I think happened versus this is what so and so says happened. And you have a line, I think, and it's like one person's fact is another person's fiction. And I think that's like kind of sums up the whole story, right? Like Cleo is just wrestling with what's fact and what's fiction. Um, and I also want to touch back on this. You talk about the house being possessed versus haunted. And I think we're all kind of haunted by figuring out like what we remember to be true and what we don't. But I think it's interesting that you tell the story as a possessed house story. So do you want to kind of like differentiate the two and like talk about that distinction?
Yeah, I think for haunted houses, I immediately think of ghosts.
Hmm.
And I didn't want it to be like her mother's ghost is in the
Oh yeah.
house, haunting the house. In a way, she is, like in the way that like memories can be ghosts. But I wanted to like combine everything I love about like a haunted house story and everything I love about like possession stories. I wasn't sure I could squeeze enough juice out of like one or the other to like be
Hmm.
like, I can have a haunted house novel or I can have a like demonic possession novel. But together, like I could make something interesting and like different and use everything that I love and kind of marry them together. And I know that like at one point I considered a poltergeist because I wanted the whatever the entity in the house to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but then I was like, I feel like possession is just like a richer and like avenue, and there's more emotional depth that you can get in there. I think ghosts generally are more like cerebral,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted something brutal. Like I wanted something vicious and mean, um, sort of because I think it makes it scarier and because of the nature of the book and the story I'm telling, and also because I wanted it to mimic Cleo in a way. And Cleo is mean. So like I wanted her to like, if you have somebody mean coming up against something mean, I think that's like, it's kind of a little bit more jarring for my protagonist. And also like, you know, it's like if Regina George met like, I don't know, Godzilla, like, you know, like,
Oh, that's a great comparison. Yes, I do know what you mean. For me, I think like possession, it feels more personal. I don't know
yeah.
because it's like that entity is inhabiting whatever, you know, you and in this case the house. So it's like that it has integral knowledge of the inner workings of the family. Whereas like a ghost haunting is like it can be somebody else that haunts certain aspects of you, but maybe not as in depth. And if you set out to write a gnarly book, you definitely did. And this one you got me a few times. But I want to go back to what you talked about with Cleo. Cleo is iconic. I love her. I mean, I don't always agree with her choices,
Yeah.
but I have never laughed harder. I have never like she's such a compelling character, and I have to know. I mean, you're right, she is mean, but I have to know how you wrote her. Like I know like we've talked before about how like you kind of write as you go and things just reveal themselves, but I have to get the scoop on Cleo because oh my God.
So, like for every novel, it's about finding the right voice to tell the story. I knew, like, I had the concept, and I knew that I needed somebody brave and confident and unbothered who would like march into her childhood home, like trauma, demon, who cares? I want to make it pretty. Like, I just needed somebody who was like not not easily phased and kind of bold that you would believe would kind of take on these things without being like, you know, maybe there is a like she's just sort of like her main priorities. Her priorities are like she's a certain set of priorities, and I needed a character who like you would believe that those were her priorities. And I wanted somebody who was very aware of keeping up appearances in a way that was not like purely vain or vapid. Some of my novels require a protagonist who's like in a low point because that their arc, the purpose of their arc is to sort of like take them to a different, I mean, every arc you take them to a different place, but sometimes the arc requires them to already be low. And sometimes the arc requires them to be like, have their shit together. And then I go in and fuck it up. And that's how this novel required that. And so in walks in Cleo. And it's funny because like I'm far enough in my career now that I know that any character I write, people are going to call them unlikable. And so, and like my favorite, which is flawed, like she's a flawed protagonist. It's like everybody's flawed to me. That's just being like, that's a human protagonist. Like it,
Yeah.
usually is reserved for female characters. They're always
Oh yeah.
flawed. But I wanted to kind of like lean into that
Hmm.
for Cleo. Like I wanted to be like, no matter what I do, people are going to like judge this character and they're going to like gleefully judge this character. And this like, you know, goes back to like the Perez Hilton and like what we were talking about like, and I kind of wanted to like troll the reader a little bit, I guess, and to be like, here's a woman who doesn't fit in to the idea of what you would want your protagonist to be.
Hmm.
Like she is a stylist. She's a like fashion influencer. She like is down to just hook up. She's down to drink. She's down to like get high. She like isn't like she puts her foot in her mouth all the time and doesn't feel bad about it. She like spends money like it's nothing. She's late. She's everything that like women aren't allowed to be and that like other women also don't like. And I wanted to put that all into a protagonist and be like, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Because like I if you only root for somebody because they fit into the idea that you want them to, then like what does that say about you?
Yeah.
And so I'm being a little bit of an asshole as an author with Cleo, because I want to challenge the reader to like the way that I'm challenging Cleo and to have empathy for her mother, despite everything she did. I'm challenging the reader to have empathy for Cleo. And like, you know, maybe people can laugh at, you know, her snarky, sarcastic comments, but like when she fake cries to get sympathy, I want the reader to stay with her. And like, I don't want them to be like, well, I would never do that, because maybe you would. And so all of that went into Cleo, and I think her voice just clicked in pretty easy for me early on, because I like knew all of the things I wanted her to be, and also like I'm somebody who has the capacity to be very mean, and like I like it's not to quote Sammy Sweetheart, but like, I'm very sweet. I'm the sweetest bitch you'll ever meet, but like, don't mess with me, because the minute somebody like sets me off, I can really go there. And I don't like that about myself. But I needed some place to put it. And so I put it in Cleo, and she gave me an opportunity to be like, you know, channel every backhanded compliment I get, or every time someone's been rude or dismissive to me. And like, I have like a terrible thought. Like, I just kind of put it into Cleo and was like, okay, I can move on. Like I can exercise that demon and like get out my mean. Because like, I love to like, I don't know, it's that like thing where like the creative insults and like I grew up in like my idea of romance was like Han and Leia, where they're like trading barbs and stuff. So, yeah, so it was a good place to put it and to like get that out of my system.
Yeah, no, I love every second of Cleo. I think what is great about Cleo is, yeah, she's all of those things. But she's very self-realized, and she's
Yeah.
very confident in that, in who she is. And that is so refreshing to read. Like, as a reader, I can't get enough of it, because I think a lot of times whenever you tell stories like this, and I've talked about it before, like I feel like in modern horror, we're kind of shifting around this like believability standpoint. You know, like I feel like a lot of old horror stories where the focal point of the horror was nobody's going to believe me. And there was like all distress and, you know, around that focal point. But then there are stories like Nat Cassidy's Nestlings, where like the focal point is about the believability of what's going on. And very much like with Play Nice, that's what Cleo is dealing with. But she's so confident in herself. It's never a doubt of what she's experiencing. She knows. It's like, shit, how am I going to handle this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky because like, and this was like a difficult thing to navigate in like, um, especially in such sharp teeth, because you're like, well, I could drag it out and be like, how long am I going to be like, this didn't happen to me, and I must be crazy and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that doesn't interest me quite as much, because like I so often women aren't believed that like and part of that is addressed in this book. But like, I didn't want it to just be like a Cassandra story where like
Yeah.
she's like, the sky is falling, and everyone's like, no, it's not, no, it's not. Like that's like kind of it's upsetting to me and it's frustrating to me, and like it goes nowhere fast. So
Yeah.
I think another reason why it was important to have Cleo be confident and like know herself, and so she also isn't. And I mean, Alexandra too, pretty much right off the bat is like, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
Because I think as women, we know what's happening. And so
Oh yeah.
internally, like writing close first person, like I'm not going to have the narrative be like, do I trust myself? Do I not trust myself? It's like, I know what's up. Like everybody else, it's about everybody else. And like, how much, how much do I care?
Yeah.
And how much will it affect me if they don't believe me?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that the stories where the believability thing, like it has its place, but in my reading recently, it
Yeah.
feels like it's just like you're spinning your wheels a little bit
Right.
whenever it's like
Exactly.
it feels redundant. So it was really nice to read this from Cleo's perspective, being the character that she is. And I have to send you like a link to this sweatshirt. There's a sweatshirt that's like I could be meaner, and I've never felt anything more in my life. I think Cleo is like the inner person for all of us who is like, yeah, I was meaner, because I relate so much to that. But the other point that I wanted to hit on with Cleo in particular is like her dynamic within her family, right? She's the youngest. She has two older sisters, and her dynamic with her father.
Mm.
Play Nice is a book that has a lot of, and also I have to say that Play Nice feels like a sister book to Set Sharp
Yeah.
Teeth. Like they are very, I feel like they're very much in conversation with one another, and there's so much shared DNA, and I just, oh, I cannot, I love Set Sharp Teeth, so,
Yeah.
but as it plays out with the family drama in Play Nice, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different characters. There's a lot of balls that you have juggling in the air all at once with all of them. How did you approach writing those dynamics? Because we could take probably the supernatural elements aside from this book. It would still read very horrific for the family drama that Cleo is dealing with. So what was your approach to handling all of the personalities, the conflicts, the history, all of those things?
So I like I was like I'm mean, but I love people. Like I just inherently love people. I like take a lot of time to try and like get to know people and like
Mhm.
observe things about them. And my dad is one of eight siblings and my mom is one of seven.
Oh wow,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm a middle child. My brother is a year and a half older than me. And then my sister is 9 years younger than me. So that was also an interesting dynamic where like I was the youngest. I was the baby,
For
and
a
then I
while, yeah.
wasn't the baby, and then I very much became the middle child. So I kind of like had both of those roles. And I just uh like my family isn't Cleo's family, but I've experienced enough like similar dynamics like through my own experience or through observation that I was able to kind of, and I understood each character so well. Like they were all
Mhm.
so clear in my head that writing the dynamics between them wasn't really as much of a challenge because I knew what Lita would say, like I knew what Daphne would say, I knew what Jay would say, the dad. Like the novel I'm writing now has not come easy. This novel just sort of came, like not all novels happen easy
Yeah.
and kind of flow. I would say Play Nice and Such Sharp Teeth were the two novels that like were just like, I was just drafting like, oh, this all makes sense. I know everybody. Like they all kind of showed up like, hello. And so it wasn't really, they all existed in my head. So the bigger challenge was about building tension within the family and
Mhm.
showing that they all loved each other and the dynamic in an imperfect but like loving, happy way.
Oh yeah.
Like early in the novel, there's still normal tension and Cleo's being Cleo, but they're like, let's go get ice cream. And you can see that they like have this ice cream shop that they go to and they always have a banana split and they have their own little language and like, they cheers with their cherries and, I love you with a cherry on top. Like things that you like a language that you develop with people that you're close to. I needed all of that to be there, but also to kind of like show the cracks in the foundation.
Hmm.
So without it being like, this is where this is going and like this is gonna, all this bad stuff is about to happen. Like I needed to find that balance. It was less about the dynamics and more about balancing the tension of the past and building in the present. That's like where most of the juggling came in.
Yeah, no, they've read incredibly real. Like, you don't necessarily have to have gone through exactly what this family has gone through, but like, people who have had, tumultuous family relationships or, have had fallings out, estrangements, things like that. And they all read very authentically. And particularly the dad, really, he got to me. Like, I got so angry. Like, me and TJ were driving and I was reading on my Kindle and then the dad does something and I sat up and I was like, you MF. Like, and TJ was like, are you good? And I'm like, no, I'm not actually. No, so they're written very authentically. I mean, all of your characters are, but there's something about this family dynamic in particular that really, really shines. The other part of this like horror story is the house itself, right? And you write some really scary shit. There are a couple scenes that I was very much disturbed and freaked out. What was that writing process like? Do you scare yourself whenever you write, or like how
Um,
does that go for you?
some, Sometimes, very rarely. I mean, because I'm in control. So like, I think
Yeah.
what scares me is like not having control. So even if I'm writing something where I'm like, man, that'd be creepy. But like for me, I try not to think too much about it because if I'm trying too hard, it won't happen.
Hmm.
Um, it's like when you go to a house with like a shy cat, like you can't chase out, you have to wait for it to come to you. Um,
Yeah.
and needed to like, the horror needed to like present itself organically within the story. It was this novel in particular gave me a lot of opportunities, um, particularly within the book,
Hmm.
because it permitted me to kind of go places I wouldn't normally go that early in a novel. Like usually like you kind of have to, for me, I try and like establish the world as much as I can. And like I like to ground my novels in reality as much as possible so that when a scary thing does happen, it's like it's that more jarring and like because you're like, I relate to these characters. Every like I can put myself in their shoes and then when the thing happens to them, it can kind of my hope is that it feels like it's happening to the reader. For this novel, the book within the book, I didn't need to like worry about that because it's a separate story. And the
Yeah.
purpose of that book is to be frightening. The way the purpose of Amityville Horror is to like tell you about the haunting. It's not to build characters or to like build a story or establish relationships, which I'm trying to do in my novel. It was just about like, I moved into this house and it was scary and this is what happened. Um, so and especially like I read the Amityville Horror for the first time like before I started writing this novel, and it just that book is absolutely bananas. Every chapter ends with an exclamation point. It's like ridiculous, like nothing kind of there's like random stuff that like doesn't tie together. Like there were just like every haunting, every scary thing that could possibly happen, we'll just shove it in. And so I kind of took inspiration from that for the book within the book, where I was like, it doesn't need to like all make sense or be clean or because she could be making it up.
Yeah,
And
that's part
like,
of the whole
so
tagline. Yeah.
um, I think it just gave me more room to play and to kind of like go places. Um, and yeah, so I just got to like think of like the purpose of that book is just to be scary. So I got to kind of like stretch that muscle again. But um, I'm sure people will still say that it's cozy or
Oh
not
God. I
horror
mean,
or it is horror, but it's blank horror.
I'm gonna start fighting people. I swear to God. I have to ask though, like, and Nat Cassidy said this on his Talking Scared episode with Neil. There's like some shared DNA with Paul Tremblay in this book.
Yeah.
Like 100%. I was like, did she just finish reading a Paul book? Because there's a scene that got me in a similar way that A Head Full of Ghosts did. Like
Yeah.
this, I had the same reaction to it as that book.
Yeah.
So I couldn't help but thinking, I was like, did she just finish reading a Tremblay
I mean,
novel?
it's no secret. Like he's one of my favorite writers. Like
Hmm.
I think he's genius. And so this book was inspired a lot by um, Paul Bearer's Club because,
Yeah.
there's the, annotations. And then, yeah, Head Full of Ghosts. It's funny because I read Head Full of Ghosts a couple years ago. And then as I was drafting this book, I was like, oh, I should go back and read it. And it was like after I'd written the scene that you're talking about. And
Yeah.
then I was reading Head Full of Ghosts and I was like, yeah, like the scene is clearly inspired by that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like definitely this book was inspired a lot by his work and just think he's a genius. So
I love Paul Bearer's Club. That's a book that I feel like it doesn't land correctly with people, and I don't really understand why.
it's either
Um,
like I feel like you either get it or like
yeah.
it's not for you. And like it was written, it's like one of those like we talk about books that were like, was this written just for me? And
Yeah.
like that book feels like that to me, where I'm just like, oh my God, there's a David Byrne reference. Like I just like it's just like right off the bat. It's like and so yeah, I think maybe people wanted it to be, I think for Paul, people like have their like, well, I loved Head Full of Ghosts and they want
Yeah.
everything to be Head Full of Ghosts. And like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what I admire so much about Paul, he's like, he just writes what he wants to write.
Yes.
And, it's just like every time it's going to be something different and like doesn't really concern himself with what people want him to be.
Yeah. And I think that very idea of like the same way that you speak of Paul is something that you implement with Play Nice because it's kind of how Cleo is too. I
Yeah.
mean, she's just doing her shit and she doesn't really care. Of course, I mean, of course she cares about some people,
Yeah.
but more than others, but for the most part, she's just kind of rocking her own world.
Yeah, some more than others is fair.
Yeah. But I think that the idea of ambiguity is always something that we talk about with like the Tremblay book, right? And that's pretty much what you're embodying with Play Nice. Like, did this really happen or did this not? Can I trust myself? Can I trust the people around me? And why aren't we talking about it? That kind of thing. And if so and so is true, why did you react that way? What are you going to do if I'm not the person that you thought that I was? And I think that you do a really interesting thing with Cleo in that way, given that she's like a social media influencer, like she's the fashion
Mhm.
influencer, and you do some really smart stuff with her social media platform that I really, really enjoy. So can you talk a little bit about like the role of social media for Cleo and like perception and those things
Yeah.
regarding her character?
I think so. Cleo being a stylist and a fashion influencer emphasizes how her childhood shaped her in the way that, like, I remember my mom dieting. Like,
Hmm.
from the time that I was like, 5 or 6, like, I remember her being on diets and how, like, unintentionally that affected me and I became hyper aware of my appearance and like um you know developed a very unhealthy relationship with food. And I think that for Cleo, she saw how her mother was treated, and she became aware from an early age how she looks and how she's perceived matters above all else. I wish that weren't true for women, but to an extent it is.
Yeah.
And um, there's a line in the book that's crazy as quicksand.
Hmm.
And once someone calls you crazy, like it kind of invalidates everything you say from that point on, because you're crazy. And Cleo, she was very young when it happened, but she like saw her mom deteriorate and how the rest of her family treated didn't greet that with empathy. They greeted it with like resentment and vitriol. And, when kids are really smart, kids pick up on things. She, listened to how her mother was spoken about and internalized that. And she grew up like understanding that she didn't want to be that and that like it was important for her. Her image was very important. And social media is the ultimate tool in controlling perception. And Cleo knows that and wields it to her advantage. And like, good for her. But also, social media isn't real life. And I think when you're used to being in control of your image, to kind of lose that, to have that slip away, can be really damaging. So that's kind of something that she goes through within the novel. But it was like, yes, it's fun and like whatever that she's an influencer, but there was a very and like I love fashion and all that, but like she's coming. The reason I made that choice was for those reasons and not just because I wanted to have her be like, I'm doing a sponsorship.
Yeah. No, that came through very clearly to me. And I think it's also interesting the conversation that she's having with her mother about it, like by reading the book,
Yeah.
doing the influencer thing. And I have to say, like the cyclical nature of Alexandra, her mother's kind of arc, and then Cleo's is really, really interesting to sit with. And I mean, anytime there's family dynamics and like you realize the cycle is repeating, to me it's always like it's never gonna
Yeah.
not be interesting to me. But I think that they have a really unique dynamic. How did you like know who Alexandra was? Because they still feel similar but distinct, right? So like the person that Alexandra was and then the person that Cleo is, how do you feel that you approached in writing those characters and the story and their arcs and the places that they went, you know?
It's interesting because Alexandra was the only character who like I can say that like in this novel that I don't know, and that's intentional. I didn't like
Yeah.
I because Alexandra in the book that she wrote is not necessarily who she was in life.
Hmm.
And like we get like a few footnotes and that's really her, but that's her coming from a defensive place, trying to justify her behavior, trying to be honest. But like the truth is like Cleo's never going to know her mother.
Yeah.
And that's like something that she really has to accept and wrestle with in the book. And I think that's like, um, it kind of goes unsaid,
Hmm.
because I didn't want her to be like, I'm trying to, like, Cleo's not going to be like, I'm trying to connect with my dead mother. Like, she's just going to, like, that's not her personality at all. She's going to be like, I'm going to the house and, like, I've picked out this wallpaper. It's going to be so cute. Like, she's more focused on that. But there's a little bit of deflection and, I think there's obviously grief for this person that I think maybe she thought, one day we'll reconnect and I'll get the answers in person and there's plenty of time to have it just be like, oh, actually, no, that's gone to me now. Um, which is what really the catalyst for her picking up the book. But even in the book, you can't like, it's that question that I like kind of get into in my work sometimes, like how do we really know another person?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was like something in Black Sheep, like, do we ever really know our parents with the
Hmm.
Vesper Constance relationship? But I wanted Cleo's story to be mirrored in both her mother and the demon in the house. Like I
Yeah.
wanted um, her personality to be reflected in both. And I wanted because Cleo's essentially going on the same journey Alexandra did, which is she moves into this house and then things start to happen. So that like was those things were going to mirror each other. And then in terms of like how the demon was treating her and how she reacted versus how her mother reacted or her mother recounted reacting. I wanted there to be like echoes and parallels there, but not like neat, like connect this happened and this happened and this
Yeah.
like a one-to-one thing. But going through what her mother went through is a way to like relate to her, but like not to know her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so layered though. I mean, it's just, it's like you said, she's recounting or she's saying, and like you said, you don't really fully know Alexandra the same way that
No.
we know Cleo. So it's something that like after having read the book and like it's been a week now, like I'm
Mhm.
still sitting with like what, and I think that that's the point of it. You just kind of need to sit with it and wonder what was the reality here. And the bigger conversation that you have with this novel is, the idea of crazy and how crazy people or women in particular are treated. And, you know, like you said, crazy is quicksand. You can't really get out of it once you get labeled that way. What do you hope is like the biggest takeaway for readers, like once they read Play Nice? Like what is the biggest thing that you hope that we walk away with reading this novel?
There's a line in the book that I repeat in the acknowledgement that's it's easier for someone to call us crazy than it is to admit that we could be right.
Yeah.
I think I really want people to trust themselves, to trust their intuition, to trust their experiences, and to like not be afraid to push back and like like I said earlier, like to put crazy in context for other people as well. Like I think it's easy to be like, you know, it's easy to be judgmental, and I think we all do it. We all slip into judgment or to like kind of curious or revel in other people's spirals. But I think it's important to ask why and to treat it with empathy for others so that when it's our turn, which it inevitably will be,
Yeah.
we hopefully receive that back. And then to like challenge people who would label you that way to their own benefit.
Hmm.
As Brittany would say I'm crazy. I got your crazy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna change gears a little bit here and move away from Play Nice because you also have something else coming out this year with Saga Press, the Night and Day anthology. You have a story in there, and I was fortunate enough to get a copy in time to read it. Is it called Fair? Is that how
Yes.
it's pronounced? Okay. There's an E on there, and you know, throws me
Yeah.
off. And it's a story about a very bad day at the Ren Fair,
Yes.
essentially. Um, and the whole entire tagline for that anthology is like horror that happens during the day and horror that happens, you know, at night in the dark. So what do you think? And there are certain aspects of that story that feel very horrific because they are happening during the day. So like, what do you think it is that makes horror in the daylight so effective or like so much worse, I guess you could say?
I think because it like subverts the expectation. I think
Hmm.
things can't hide in the dark. Um, so what does it mean when the horror isn't hiding? Like
Yeah.
there's a boldness to daytime bright horror. Like there's like an audacity. And I love that. And I think it's really, really compelling and interesting to be like, I mean, I remember when I saw Midsummer, I was just
I
like,
was just
oh my
about to say
gosh. Like
that.
I don't, maybe I've seen like that to me, that is like the epitome of daytime horror.
Yeah,
And it's
same.
just like, it's not, it's not like there's nothing to hide behind. It's just happening in front of you and forcing you to confront it. And I love that.
Yeah, it's very vivid horror
Yeah.
too. Like when you think about Midsummer, you think about how bright that
The
movie is. Like,
colors and yeah.
yeah, like it very much sticks with you. And I think that that's something that you kind of get into at the Ren Fair because it's kind of like an unsuspecting setting. I don't know how you really feel about the Ren Fair. I've only been to one as part of like a high school trip.
I I've like I went when I was a kid and I got like a very beautiful like pearl like princess. I was like very girly when I was younger and I had a great time at the Ren Fair. I really want to go back. I would love to like gnaw on a turkey leg, like nobody's business. But like I Ellen came to me. Um, I think there was somebody who was doing the anthology that then like something came up and they couldn't do it anymore. So she needed a daytime story and like I just did like the So Thirsty tour and Play Nights edits and I was like burnt out and I like had just like my brain vacation at the time after I finished Mormon Wives was Ren Fair on HBO. It's like a limited series documentary about, I think it's the Texas Renaissance Festival. And there's
Yeah.
like this like old man who like runs it and he's like on a power trip and it's like it's very wild. And so because I had just watched that and kind of like had that context of the Ren Fair and because when I was writing So Thirsty, the vampires stay at an abandoned Ren Fair. And I was like, oh, this is such a cool setting. Like I would love to like revisit this setting for horror. when Ellen asked me, I was like, oh, yeah, like I was able to be like, yes, because otherwise, because if I didn't have something
Yeah.
to write a story in that like short amount of time, I was like, and like it's Ellen Datlow. Like I couldn't just be like, I'll just like churn something out. Like it had to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once the setting clicked into place, I I was like, yeah, I'm excited about this. And I like a lot of Shirley Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite Shirley Jackson stories take place during the day, like The Tooth
Mm-hmm.
and The Demon Lover. Like they both take place during the day, and there's like the way that she builds dread, and like I think a lot about like like it's getting hot and the sun beating down on you, and like all of that. So um, yeah, everything everything fell into place, and that's how we got
As
this
somebody
Ren Fair
who
horror story.
Yeah, as somebody who lives in the South and
Yeah,
like has been in a bathroom whenever you have to like go to the bathroom and then you're
yeah,
sweating and you need to like pull your
yeah,
pants back up, you are dying. Yeah, and
yeah,
there was a certain horror to that that I had to like pull my hair up off the back of my neck when I
yeah.
was reading. I was like, nope, we're not doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, there's something like about being hot that is also like horrific. And also like hot in a crowded place. Whoa, the
Yeah.
worst. The
And like
worst.
your clothes are like touching you in weird way. Oh
Yeah.
God, I could die. I could just
Mm.
die. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and then like
very
other
effective.
people's sweat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
Mm.
Could not relate more. That was a very visceral read, I have to say. So those are the two things that I know of that you have coming out this year. Is there anything else that you're like that you have coming out this year? Like are you allowed to talk about what you're working on now? And like what does the rest of the year look like for you?
Yeah, so also in September, Becky Spratford's
Oh yeah.
Why I Love Horror essay collection is coming out. And I have
Yes.
an essay in there. Um, it's really wonderful. I like don't write a lot of nonfiction, so it was really like special to have an opportunity to do that. And I'm very grateful to Becky for giving me that chance, and really incredible table of contents. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like so excited for that. And then I do have another story in an anthology coming out this fall that I can't talk about yet. And then I'm working on um, a novel called Kiss Slay Replay. That is a time loop horror that takes place at a wedding.
Oh
Um,
hell yeah.
so I, yeah, it's been like it's been an interesting like journey with time loop horror because it's just like such a different structure, and like I'm always like I'm gonna challenge myself to do something different every time, and like with So Thirsty I was like I'm gonna do a road trip novel, and with Play Nice I was like it's gonna be a book within a book and annotations, and then this one it's like all right, time loop, because it's a completely different structure than
Yeah.
a typical novel. So but I've been having fun with that and just like playing with different horror tropes, and so far, I mean, it's going to change the longer I write, but it's felt like a less emotionally daunting than like my last few novels, which is fun. Like it's been like fun to write and be
Good.
creative, and a little bit bloodier and like pulpier. So yeah, that should be out in fall of 2026 if all goes according to plan. Knock
Yeah.
wood,
No.
salt over the shoulder.
Listen, a wedding horror novel, like as somebody who's planning
Oh
a
yeah.
wedding right now,
No.
oh, if you need inspiration, call me. Jesus Christ. No, that's awesome. That sounds incredible, and I'm really glad to hear that because it sounds fun. So like to hear that the
Yeah.
writing process is fun like that, that's so cool. So I'm definitely excited for that. But no, you have a very busy year with
Yeah, I do.
releases.
I do. It's
Um,
good to be busy. It's good to be
yeah,
busy, she
it
says.
is.
But like the we're recording this in at the end of April, and the new season
Yeah.
of Morbid Wives comes. So like that'll be like my like dangling carrot to like get my work done so I can like dissociate for 8 hours watching that.
Hey, look, I support it. I've never been happier to disassociate in such a way because oh my, that's captivating television. Do you think you'll do book tour for Play Nice?
Yes, I am going to be
Yeah.
doing a book tour. The like locations haven't been like solidified yet, but I will be making the rounds, going on the road, and I'm so excited because I had so much fun last year, and I just like it's the best. It's like the best part of the job. I love it. I mean, writing is the best part of the job. but no.
No, travel's fun too.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Rachel. I mean, it always is, but in particular, this has been wonderful. And I appreciate you so much for one, talking to me this early about the novel, and just like answering all of my questions, being so thorough and thoughtful in all of them. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to talk about before we sign off?
Tommy? No, I'm kidding. There's
I was wondering.
there's a brother-in-law character that Anna says we both also like righteous gemstones, and she says Tommy reminds her of BJ, and I had to like put my phone down and just like lie on the floor laughing because it's just like now I can't think of him as anyone other than BJ.
You describe him as being like overly nice and wearing a lot of sweater vests.
Yeah.
Just I couldn't unsee it after. Like I immediately just my mind just went to BJ. Yeah, so apologies, or I don't know whether to say thank you. I don't know.
You say you're welcome. That was I love it. So I hope that everybody reading Play Nice can picture BJ from Gemstones.
I think it'll enhance their reading experience. I think it'll really.
So too.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, again. And Play Nice is out on September 9th from Berkeley, and everybody should pre-order. And pre-order from independent bookstores because we're reporting this on Independent Bookstore Day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this won't go out then, but still, go ahead and pre-order from there.
We celebrate Indie Bookstore Day every day.
Facts. The absolute most thanks to Rachel for her time and for making sure that I got the book when I did, having the conversation when we did earlier this year, right whenever the book was still fresh in my mind. That was really, really important, I think, to having a productive conversation. So huge thank you to Rachel for all of that. And I can't speak about how much I adore Play Nice. It feels like a sister book to Such Sharp Teeth, and if you've heard me talk about that book before, you know how strongly I feel about that book and how important it is to me. So if you're hearing me say these words about Play Nice, then you know what that means. It is a unrelenting book. It is not afraid to go there. It is scary. It has teeth. It has claws. It has fangs. Whatever adjective or, beautiful piece of imagery, horror imagery you want to use to describe Play Nice, it has it. And I think that the most brutal thing about Play Nice is about how honest it is and how we treat one another. And it extends beyond the parameters of fantastic horror fiction because it says something about each and every one of us. And I know it's changed the way that I've thought of things since reading it. It truly is a special book, and I implore you all to pre-order it because there's still time to pre-order it before it hits shelves. Yeah, it's just really that incredible. I know it sounds like I'm really hyping it up, but I think it's worth every bit of it. So it comes out on Tuesday, September 9th from Berkeley Publishing. You can still pre-order a copy, go pick up a copy the day that it comes out. And in terms of what I'll be giving you next week, on Tuesday, I will be releasing my interview with Keith Rawson on his upcoming novel, Coffin Moon, which releases on the same day, September 9th. It is a conversation about blood, guts, gore, vampires, revenge, all that good stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And until then, thanks you guys.